All right, hello everyone, and welcome to our special FBN webinar, Inhabit So You Don't Inhibit. This is a presentation today from myself. My name is Colin Pennington. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for the crop nutrition line here at FBN, and I'm joined by Neil McCormick, our Product Manager, as well as Matt Caron, who is one of our regional proprietary agronomists with the company, and going to walk through some of our in-furrow biostimulant solutions, specifically when we think about starter fertilizers and how you can enhance your starter program. We're going to walk through a little bit of positioning our product as well as the data that we have over trialing in the last few years to really support that data and help you integrate one of these solutions into your operation. So without further ado, I'll kick us off. And really one of the things that we talk about a lot is the biostimulant and crop nutrition space, the emergence of that market, and what is it that we're really trying to accomplish. So when we think about FBN's offerings and in our solutions, we're really trying to accomplish one of or some combination of three things. It could be increasing our nutrient efficiency, a big piece of the expenditure that we put in the crop every year around fertilizers and maximizing our nutrient efficiency, mitigating abiotic stress, those external factors that are a little more outside of our control that can help prevent the yield loss that can come from those stresses, and long-term and short-term soil health. All of these things can help to that yield preservation message. And so whether that is an actual yield preservation, operational efficiency, some of the things that we'll talk about today as we walk through our products, Inhabit P and Inhabit Boost, all things to keep in mind as we kind of put that puzzle together and really think about what works best. Our Farmers First line of crop nutrition is pretty robust. You can see a full list here. We've got, your traditional soil applied humics. We've from that to a live microbe to our foliar nutrition products. We're going to spend a lot of our time today really focused on one key area, and that's that at planting or in furrow space that really encapsulates Inhabit P and Inhabit Boost. So without any further delay, I'm going to turn things over to Neil McCormick, who's our product manager, and start walking us through a little bit of the background on Inhabit P. Neil?
Thank you, Colin. So we're going to start off with a quick overview on, what is it, what does it do, how does it work, how much does it cost, what's the rate, and then we'll get into more of the agronomics and data behind the product. So we're looking at a high efficiency phos starter. So it's a complete replacement for any 10-30-4-0, 6-24-6, any type of those high phos blends is what we would be completely replacing in furrow. The big advantage, you can see that 1 to 2 quart rate. You're probably used to going out at around 5 gallons. So that's one of the main advantages, and we'll get into the what and how here in a second, but that's the big advantage, is that big rate reduction. 10x, that's a 10x reduction compared to the 5 gallons I mentioned you're probably used to. How does it accomplish that? What we're doing is actually complexing a phosphoric acid with a novel humate. That's a micro-humate, we would call it. It's different than a humic or a fulvic. We'll get into some of those details later. But it's binding to the phos and keeping it more available, so you can deliver more phos with less product being the ultimate goal. Phos gets tied up real easily, so we're protecting it, making sure it gets to the plant when it needs to in that furrow. So that's the quick overview. And if you go to the next slide, we'll get into some of the data. So we ran our IRL data, which is our Innovators Research League. You can see the deal at the bottom there. We have 22 trials across 11 states. These are field scale trials, so these aren't small plot. These are typically 40 to 100 acre fields in very high quality strips. So it's a very unique way that we do our trials. It's very more robust than a smaller standard plot would, but you can see the results here within the trials is 95% performed within 3% of the control yield. So there really wasn't any statistical difference going from the 5 gallons to the 2 quarts. You're probably thinking, well, from 5 gallons to 2 quarts, like, man, that's a big reduction. I'm a little worried I'm going to give up some yield. We can say pretty resoundingly that we didn't see any of that on the trials we ran, and it was a very high performance product compared to what you're likely used to using. If you go to the next slide here, the performance, if you look at different geographies and states, this is an ROI point of view. This is a snapshot in time. So the exact ROI is going to depend on what's the variance in cost at the time you purchase, which so you can evaluate that with your depending on your unique situation. But just to give you a picture, you'll see the different geographies where we tested it, what the different relative performance was, and an ROI positive situation in most scenarios when we did do the trials, and I'm going to turn it over to Matt to give you some insight. Matt, what are some of the agronomic reasons you can think of that are maybe causing these regional performance differences? Performs well pretty much everywhere, but it performs better in some areas. So what's your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Neil. In the northern geography that I am responsible with, what the feedback from customers and the visuals that we've gotten visiting the field, there seems to be a high correlation between having higher pH or more alkaline soils and the performance that these carbon products are bringing. Especially the Inhabit P is a carbon acid and a phosphoric acid. That acidity and zero salt, because of the way this product is complexed, instead of being reacted with a nitrogen source, as most of the other phosphorus products are, the result is a low pH acid that, when it's added into a higher pH soil, is pulling things closer to neutral and is helping assist availability of other nutrients, and it's helping to change, at least temporarily, the soil environment right around the seed. And that's why we believe that the customers who have the most success performing against traditional phosphorus products are seeing that in higher pH. But I will note here, a number of these geographies where neutral or acidic pH, we did not see a drastic fall off in performance. It's not as if going into some of those neutral or acidic low pH environments is causing a fall off in performance. But our best response from our customers, the best feedback that we've gotten as far as having significantly better performance than traditional phosphoruses, has been in your higher pH soil environments.
Yep. So to kind of sum that up, short and succinctly, we could probably say, hey, if you're in a low to neutral pH, you can probably expect equal performance to your current practice, your current starter. If you're in high pH soils, there's a higher odds that you're probably going to see an incremental yield adding to your ROI. Is that a fair statement, Matt?
Yes, I would very much agree with that statement.
All right, cool. Yeah. So anyway, that's the view there. And then just to give you some additional insight here into the IRL data and the rigor we put into that. So if you look at the top, the 22 trials, 11 states, it's across 1,621 acres and 7,200 subplots. So you may be thinking, what the heck is a subplot? Maybe you've never heard of that. That's what makes our trials a little different. So we actually take those individual strip trials and we break them down into even smaller subplots and then measure them, which adds even more. So basically you're getting 7,200 small plots worth of trial data to assess and evaluate and compare against each other. So, you have 22 small plot locations, you get 22 locations, but with this, we're actually getting 7,200 small plots, which is pretty cool, just to give you more confidence in the level of performance that we saw here. And what that generated is a 49% win rate in those 3,439, individual side-by-sides with the Inhabit P on its own versus the conventional starter, with a negative 0.1 yield delta, meaning like, hey, there was pretty much no yield difference. And then the average ROI at the time we ran the trial was around 1175. So very high degree of performance that were statistically higher compared to conventional starter from an ROI point of view, and equal from a performance point of view. So that's there. So yeah, pretty cool, unique way we run our trial given our unique data capabilities. So I can keep rolling here. So how to use it. So I'll just give you some quick tips on, how do I apply this in the field? There is a, you put it at 2 quarts of product applied. You do want to blend that with a 10-to-1 to water. It's a low pH product, so you want to avoid going concentrated. That's going to be pretty hard on equipment, and usually at the 2 quarts, that's going to be hard to get through your planter system anyway. But that does allow is you can store a lot less product during the off season, and you get it all in totes. You don't need tanker loads. Is what that allows you to do. So it's going to be a lot easier to handle and get it to the field and get it applied. Just need to have a water, an additional water source. So and overall be a little cleaner, easier to handle with the planter with that lower dilution rate. You're not putting a starter out, concentrated starter, high salt starter at those rates. And we Haven't observed any equipment issues. We do send a pump with the product. It is a low pH, so we send you a pump with the product just to avoid any issues with the transfer into the planter. So that's a service we add along with it. And you can see different rates. If I'm applying 1 quart, that's going to equal 2.5 gallons a starter. If I'm applying 2 quarts, that's going to be 5 gallons a starter. 3 quarts, 7, 5, 4, and so on. So that's just some practical how you use it and how it works in the field. Then just some field photos here. I'm going to turn that over to Matt just to give us some insight into what he's observed having used the product out in the field. If you want to dive into some detail here, Matt.
Thanks, Neil. When we have actually gone to the field and done root digs side by side with treated versus untreated, we are consistently seeing larger root development and larger root masses underneath the plants that are treated with Inhabit P versus other starters. We're very consistently seeing a better soil tilth. You can actually, they dig out, even though you've got a larger root mass that you're trying to lift out of the ground, it actually digs a little bit easier because those carbons have positively interacted with other nutrients in the soil and with the biology in the soil, and they've helped make it a little bit more aerated and a little bit more loose around the plant without, I don't want to like imply too much. It's not so loose that you're having issues with standability or anything like that, but it is noticeable. The soil is very much more compacted around an untreated product versus Inhabit P. And overall, we're seeing larger stalk diameter, we're seeing slightly larger plants, and definitely that larger root system. This past year, when I was doing a lot of these root digs, it was most of the areas were under drought stress, and it was visual how much having a larger root system under a drought scenario was helping assist those plants to look better.
All right.
Neil, we'll go back to you to kind of walk through Inhabit Boost.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Colin. Inhabit Boost is going to be the product more from a starter point of view. This is something, hey, I already bought my starter, or maybe you like your starter, or just looking at something to enhance the performance. This is the product you'd want to turn to. So if you're like, hey, I'm not quite comfortable with replacing my starter, I got something bought, this is the go-to. So 1 to 2 pints per acre, fairly low use rate, and then the 6.75 to 15.25 an acre would be the cost there. So this is more, we're basically have a premix with the Inhabit P, so we're premixing this carbon material with the phos acid. This is just adding the carbon material on its own so that you can enhance any fertilizer, make it perform better, get some of those same benefits, protect your fertilizer investment in furrow, being the goal there. So unlike conventional humics and fulvics, this is a more novel material. It's a smaller molecule size, which I'll get into some detail why that's beneficial. But ultimately, the benefit to you is you can, get the same benefit using less is ultimately, and a little easier to handle, use out in the field as well. So it's a complete, replacement to humic product. If you're using one of those in the field today, it can be used to help stabilize nitrogen, boost efficiency, all those things. So we can go to the next slide here. The trials we ran, same thing. We ran in-field IRL trial data. We did 3 different types of trial. We did a no treatment comp. We just did a single one of those, got a good 2% bushel increase, and then we did some nitrogen stabilizer comparables. So that'd be to conventional nitrogen stabilizers in the market, and then a humic. So your 12%, 6% humic. There's a few products out there that we compared against, and we saw relatively equal performance. You can incremental in some cases, but pretty equal performance across the board. You can see that slight edge with a positive increase in most scenarios. So you can confidently replace either of those products and get a similar result, being the goal. So next slide here, we can go into if I'm using a traditional stabilizer, how does that work versus the and then we'll get into what the difference is in the next slide here. So when you look at the left, we start with ammonium. What we're trying to do with an NBPT product is try to slow the conversion to nitrite. Nitrite leaches, so we don't want to have that. And then DCD, nitropyrin, are the other common materials out in the market. You're just trying to slow the conversion to nitrate. With that, you're killing the microbes that do that with the DCD nitropyrin. So you're essentially just kind of slowing the process down or killing the microbes that initiate the process. And it's a short term, you know, you get a short window where you're getting control, but it's a very brief period of you know, stabilization that you're getting in most cases. That's not long term. And ultimately, when you do slow down this process, you're slowing down the leaching of nitrite and the leaching and volatilization of nitrate, which are the two versions you're trying to get plant uptake. So in the next slide here, we go to, so what makes the, you know, the microcarbon or the humics different, or how do they stabilize? So when you have the honeycomb pattern in the middle there, we'll start on the left. That's the humic acid. What you're looking for is on those carbon molecules or carbon chains, there's loose connection points. And those loose connection points will actually bind to the nitrogen to prevent it from getting, you know, so instead of slowing the process down, you're really protecting the nitrogen and holding it in place so that it can't do that same conversion. So you're making it more of a slow release process by adding these types of materials. So as we move to the fulvic, you can see the advantage as we get smaller and smaller is it takes less, you know, less of those honeycombs or, you know, carbon chains to hold more nitrogen. And then you can see when we get to the fulvic fraction is the technical term that our material would be. So it's novel in that the only difference between a humic and a fulvic, which you're probably used to, is that it's just a smaller carbon chain or a smaller molecule size. So when you think of humic, fulvic in this, it's more of a, that's kind of like your soils. You got sand, silt, clay. They're all similar materials. They're just different sizes being the main differentiation. So same thing here we're seeing with the humic materials. So it's a, you know, it's a source that we get it from, produces this this type of material is how we are able to accomplish that. But you can see it can have a very small molecule that can hold just as much nitrogen, you know, as the more complex carbon chains where there's less open binding sites to protect the nitrogen. So hopefully that was not too complex of a explanation. It's a bit of a hard concept to wrap your head around, but that's a really cool material that can give you more long-term benefit. This will stay in your soil. So a traditional stabilizer, you're not going to get a lot of long-term benefit out of. This you're going to, as you add this to your soil, it'll help build up, maintain your soil quality, and really help protect your nitrogen, not only at time of use, but also over time. So I know, Matt, any comments you take on to that explanation, or did I hopefully make it simple enough, but detailed enough to help you understand?
I don't think I have anything to add to how it works, but I love this visual presentation of how actually having a smaller molecule causes you to have more power, more efficacy, if you will, even though you're using a smaller amount and you have a smaller material present. The other thing, having worked with a lot of humics and fulvics in my career, across the span of my career, I remember when we first started utilizing these products, it was very dirty, a lot of particulate, a lot of problems with application unless you were figuring out how to do it dry or broadcasting stuff. We definitely saw the benefits from the get-go, but I think that this slide also illustrates that this is like a third generation product, and it is much cleaner and easier to utilize. It doesn't have anywhere near the complications that we used to have with some of the older, if anybody is used to using humics from the past, this is definitely a big step forward.
Yep, yeah, and just to, you know, the lower use rate is one big advantage. So you'll notice like the 1 to 2 plant, you're probably used to like a half to a gallon, maybe even 2-3 gallons of humics or fulvics. So that's a big advantage there on the rate, but also the mixability. Matt mentioned it's clean to work with. It's also really friendly from a compatibility point of view. So it's a fairly neutral pH. And we haven't, I've been on the market for quite a few years. I don't think I've had maybe one issue mixing with fertilizer, which anybody that's worked with liquid fertilizer additives knows there's usually some problems when you go to mix with different things. But this is a very friendly, easy to mix formula that you shouldn't have any issues regardless of what formulation or product you're working with. So really nice, you know, convenience and practicality from that point of view. So next slide. Yeah, I'll let Matt keep rolling here on the field results and what we should look for.
Yeah, I think especially because the carbons being a significant component in both of these. This is illustrating that you are going to see that enhanced root mass, the enhancement to the soil tilth around it. Those are going to be the same between these products. Obviously, Inhabit Boost is most often used as a companion with other phosphorus starter fertilizers, and in some situations that is works out very, very well for a customer. So I definitely would support that usage. And the Inhabit Boost is going to bring similar plant health and growth development as compared to the untreated checks that we've seen. I think especially the photos that are being presented, you can see that stalk diameter increase between the treated and untreated, and that is a very consistent across all of these carbon products that we're offering.
All right. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Matt. Do want to spend a little bit of time, because this is an on-demand webinar. We obviously don't have the chance to incorporate questions in a traditional manner, but we did want to go back and kind of cover some of the questions that I think we most frequently get as it relates to customer interaction with these products in the field, what our testing has done. So I'm going to have both Matt and Neil kind of chime in here, but Matt, I'm going to start with you. The first question really centered around Inhabit P and the usability of that phosphorus. So a common question is how can I get, with 3 pounds of phosphorus, do me just as good a job than the 19 pounds I'm used to applying? And I think we covered a little bit of how the carbon works and how that's helping, but I think you've got a really nice illustration as to how that actually comes to light in the product.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. This is a question that I get very commonly. If you do the math on your 2 quarts or a half-gallon rate of Inhabit P, there's going to be 3 pounds of available phosphorus present. If you apply 1034O, there are 19 total pounds, but there's a fraction between ortho and polyphos. Now, I will never contend with anyone that they are at some point in the future, are they going to be able to recruit some of that phosphorus that has, just by the fact of the form of the phosphorus, is not a guarantee that it's tied up and lost. But if you do the math with the vast majority of 1034O products of how much true ortho available phos is present in 5 gallons, which is a very common application, it comes out to about 3 pounds. So with the Inhabit P, we're starting with 3 pounds that are already complexed up with a carbon, and they're already safened, which, quite honestly, that is about what you can expect out of a product like 5 gallons of 1034O, is the same amount of phosphorus that's truly available. And part of it, referencing back to our conversation about soil pHs, this is why I think we do just as good in a neutral to acidic pH, but we seem to outperform competitive products and higher pHs because we're protecting all 3 pounds from tie-up. So yes, is the total math on the total load of phosphorus significantly different? It is. But the amount of truly available phosphorus that we're offering and that we are keeping protected by its complexing with the carbons, there's actually as much, or in some instances more, coming out of that half-gallon of Inhabit P.
I would just add on just one more thing there. If you look at, it's pretty widely accepted that around 70–80% of phos gets tied up on application. Our goal is to keep and prevent that 75% from getting tied up and keep that, the carbon, keeping that more 100% available what we have. So if you take the 19 pounds or so and say, well, what's 20% of the 19? That's going to come out to around that 3 pounds that Matt's talking about too. So you're usually with the 5 gallon, you're adding 5 gallons, hoping that 20% of that makes it to the plant, versus ours, you're adding 2 quarts, and the majority of that 2 quarts is getting to the plant. So I just throw that in, kind of echoing the same sentiments Matt's talking about, if it's another way to look at it. So.
Well, and ultimately, that's what gets us to that operational efficiency. You and Matt both covered and talked about how we can expect the product to perform versus the standard practice that you're currently using from a traditional starter. But then you can get all the way down to, by complexing it the way that it is formulated, you're down to that need for far less products. As Neil mentioned, you get things that you need in a tote or a jug versus having to rely on the tanker. And we all know how things go in the spring when we're trying to get product in the ground. The less outside factors we have to rely on to get us what we need when we need it, the greater chance for success. And so we can think about the performance benefit and even the potential yield benefit that we can get in certain situations. But with a product like Inhabit P, that operational flexibility is something that we definitely don't want to look past. So sticking with Inhabit P, Matt or Neil, whichever one of you want to cover, and we covered it on that particular slide, but can I dilute my Inhabit P 10-to-1 using fertilizer instead of water?
So I can tackle this one quick, then Matt, if you have any additional thoughts, but I think the standard practice here is consult your agronomist and do a jar test. I think there's a lot of different fertilizers. That's kind of a generic answer, but it's the right one. There's a lot of different types of fertilizers and formulations. We can't assure you that every formulation is going to work. There's some that may work. There's some that it might plug everything and be a wreck. So you just have to be cautious what you're mixing it with. The one we can safely recommend that's going to work for 100% is the water dilution. Anything outside of that, you just need to experiment with, and we can, Matt, the RPAs and our team can help you out with some of that if you need some jar tests, but that's what I would confidently recommend to avoid any issues. So Matt, I don't know anything you'd want to tack onto that, but I think it's the right, maybe that's the right answer to throw out there.
I agree 100%. We are playing around with some jar testing that it's not going to be exhaustive though. Any other combination that you're looking at. I have talked to a few people who are looking at like a 2x2 offset where they're not going directly in the row and they're looking to mix with some other products. But probably the first question that I would have to this one, if somebody approached me with this question, I would ask them back if we can show this performance that Inhabit P is going to be very comparable to almost any other, especially phosphorus product out there. Why do we need to dilute it with a current fertilizer? And somebody may have a very good answer for that. They're correcting a situation that they have. And if that's the case, I would support jar testing and getting to the bottom of whether or not that would perform or not, but that's probably where I would go with. I hope we made the case that this can actually replace for sure the phosphorus component of a starter fertilizer program.
Yep, but I will throw out just one more thing that definitely is going to be the hardest thing to work, because if you have a high potassium, you're mixing, a very low pH with the very high pH, and that's going to be a situation where you're most likely to run into issues. But I can tell you in our just to give you a sense, we did run some when we did run our trials, we did some 50-50 with, adding 10-34-0 or other comparable starters with the Inhabit P. We didn't see a lot of difference in performance. The Inhabit P on its own, honestly, was a little bit better than the blending it. We did run into a few issues with compatibility when we ran those tests. So it's just kind of it's really a game of roulette when you start mixing fertilizers. Eventually you're going to run into something that doesn't jive or work, so that's, for what it's worth, we did those trials. We probably had, of the 22, we probably had three to four that did have some problems, though. So that's to give you a sense of the scope. Worked some places, others it didn't. So anyway, keep
all right. So moving into key questions around Inhabit Boost. We showed that nice visual of those binding sites and how the different carbon molecules can work and be effective. And we know that not every conversation on the fly as you're shopping for product and having a conversation provides that visual opportunity. So we did want to take a second to kind of go back and just reiterate, for the grower that's already using a humic, how is Inhabit Boost going to perform, compared to that humic that I already use, and what's making it so much more efficient?
Yeah, and I'll defer to Matt. I think Bernie probably wants to hear from the guy using it in the field and what he's seeing. So I'll let him field this one first and see if they can add some value later.
Yeah, where I would go with that immediately is this counterintuitive that the smaller the molecule size, the more ability to complex and support the other nutrition in the soil, because we are working with this small carbon molecule in Inhabit Boost. We can both do more with less. The use rate is not lower than all of the other carbon products on the market, but it is definitely on the lower end, while still demonstrating these root and plant health that we are seeing, along with, in the end, yield, which is what we ultimately need to have out of any product. We're getting there with less total product because of that molecule size. But in addition, the product is very clean compared to a lot of the other humics that I've worked with. And I don't want to paint all of them with the same brush, because I'm sure we've got some competitors with some very good quality products out on the market. But I would say that Inhabit Boost is second to none compared to a lot of the products that I have worked with, as far as how clean, lacking particulate, how uniform in color the product is. And you're just able to do more with less because of this unique humic structure.
I got nothing. That was great.
All right. And the last big one, along the same lines, when we think about the label in particular, you know, a question that will come up: Inhabit Boost, how are we getting such good results with such little nitrogen and phosphorus in the blend? Neil, that one you want to maybe take a stab at here?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the nitrogen and phos aren't, I mean, those aren't the workhorses in the formula. So those are, part of it, you're getting a little bit of a nitrogen boost. That's going to help get things out of the ground a little sooner, maybe feed some of the, help with some, you know, nutrient breakdown, get things kick-started. So there's some benefit there. But the big thing there we're trying to accomplish with, or, you know, big component of it is just the regulatory environment we have to deal with the bioproducts. So currently you know, you can either register as a fertilizer or a soil amendment in most states. So we chose to go as a fertilizer. Just you have to be able to submit to all the different geographies and get approval. So it's pretty tough to get everybody to agree on what the language should be and those types of things. So we try to make this, it requires that we make the label simple just to make sure that we get it in the market. But it doesn't do a great job of, you know, articulating what's in the product. We really have to rely on marketing materials to, you know, provide accuracy in what it is, what it's doing, unfortunately. But there is growing momentum on a biostimulant or a biological regulatory framework that would help us be more, you know, be able to label these more accurately and clearly. And since it is not a true humic or fulvic, we can't, you know, say humic or fulvic on the label, because it wouldn't, you know, it's not one of those materials which, you know, so unfortunately we can't claim it as that on the label. Otherwise we would. So it's mainly just a regulatory thing, is the primary reason for that. So the thing doing the work is the carbon. So that's how it can do so much with so little NNP, is the NNP aren't really the features there. So hopefully that gave you some insight into the regulatory world and why that is. And if you look at a lot of products on the market, you'll probably see a theme there. There's not an attempt to be deceptive or anything in the marketplace. It's just the regulatory world that everybody has to manage in different states there. So, but anyway, it's on the mend. We're working on getting things fixed. So hopefully that'll clear up in the future.
All right. Thank you, Neil, and thank you, Matt. Appreciate all the background and a lot of data, a lot of information here. Want to close on just a couple of key reminders as you guys go. A lot of the visualization of some of the things that we talked about on today's webinar are available at fbn.com. So if you visit the product pages for either of these products, you'll see some of that data visualized, you know, how we use it, when the best time to use it, rate recommendations, all of those different things are available. So there's QR codes here to each product for those of you that would like to scan them with your phone now. Or again, you can visit fbn.com and shop for these products today. Neil talked through kind of the pricing swags based on your use rates, as well as whether you're buying with cash or you're operating under the current finance offers that we have. Those are going throughout the course of the year. And so that's why the swag is there. But I certainly encourage you to visit the store pages, check out the price, see how these might be a fit today. In addition to that, another one of the features that we have at fbn.com that we've recently launched here with our crop nutrition portfolio is really trying to give you as a grower an opportunity to identify, you know, what are those products like an Inhabit P or an Inhabit Boost that might be the best fit for your operation. Whether you're already using a large amount of crop nutrition products in your plan on a yearly basis, or it's a space that you're starting to get into, you've got the ability at the top of our crop nutrition category page on the website to answer 3 quick questions. Let us know what crop you're growing, what application method or methods you're using throughout the year, whether you're talking about your in-furrow applications, side dress, your in-crop pesticide applications, fungicide, insecticide, your post-emerge herbicides, and then what are those target benefits? We talked about how large the crop nutrition and biostimulant space is, understanding when are there live microbes present, when are there not? Is that something I want? Am I looking at soil health? Am I looking at plant response or preventing plant response to certain environmental factors? You can go through that list, select which of those targets you're looking for, click that find button, and this tool will feed back to you the short list of products within the portfolio. Maybe it's just one, maybe it's a couple of options that are the best place for you to start that conversation, and certainly encourage you to work with your FBN representative. We had Matt on the call with us here today. We've got other agronomists across the country that can really help be an engaged part of that conversation as you build your plan for the year. So with that, appreciate everyone joining this webinar. Thank you for watching. Thank you for making it through to the end. Let us know if you've got any questions, if there's ever anything we can do. But with that, we'll wrap it up and say thank you and have a great rest of the day.